Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another brand new Rebor release. You can see we have the Tyrannosaurus Rex Kiss in 1/35th scale, the Island variant. So, basically we've got ourselves a Prehistoric Planet variant of the T-Rex, which is really exciting because that's probably one of the coolest looking color schemes for a T-Rex I've ever seen. The box art is pretty much your standard here when it comes to Rebor. You can see again when we turn it to the back, you've got all sorts of images here showing off many of the other releases that are out currently from Rebor or have been out in the past, some of which are a little bit harder to get a hold of nowadays, like the Tyrannosaurus and Utah Raptor and stuff like that. But you've got some pretty darn awesome figures that have been released in the Rebor line overall. So let's pop this box open and check this new version of the T-Rex out. So included with our T-Rex, of course, we have the plastic stand, but you also have the super cool art card that we know and love from Rebor. And as you can see, you've got all sorts of really cool stuff here, images, information on the T-Rex like you usually do. And then we have our Tyrannosaurus Rex itself in all of its Prehistoric Planet glory. And honestly, it looks so nice in these colors. Definitely, I would say one of the best looking versions of this T-Rex that they have released so far. Maybe the best overall, just because, again, it is that Prehistoric Planet style. And I love Prehistoric Planet. Definitely one of, if not the best dino documentary as far as, realism and impressive CGI and just the total package goes. But this looks awesome, honestly. I believe the sculpt of this is the exact same sculpt as the first version of Kiss. We will bring that figure in here in just a little bit to compare. But if we begin here in the head sculpt of the Tyrannosaurus, you can see we do have some nice light tones and a nice dark wash over those light tones. But then you also have all sorts of darker shades of browns, a little variation to those browns that kind of stripe down from the upper part of the head and also run down here into the lower jaw. I think all of that paintwork is also very nicely applied, nice and naturally overall. We have a grayish tone moving over the top of the snout, also has been hit with a nice dark wash. We can see that the nostrils as well have that dark wash applied, so it helps to really highlight the nostrils. You see a little bit more of the grayish tone up above the eye, and then you actually have a little bit of a reddish tone there around the eye of the Tyrannosaurus. And then when you lead down into the eye itself, we do have almost it's hard to tell if it's like a gold, it almost looks like a copper sort of a tone in there with a nice black pupil, and of course a gloss coat shining really nicely on top of that. But everything looks really good here in the head sculpt of the T-Rex. And if you first of all look at it from the front, look at how darn nice that looks. That looks awesome. But also when you turn it around and take a look at it over here on the opposing side, you can see again it looks pretty much the same. And we do, of course, have an articulated jaw. It's just going to take me a moment to get it open. There we go. So once we get the jaw open, we can see the tongue does feature a very nice pinkish tone in there, very realistic looking. And of course, the detail is excellent on the figure. And then when we move to the inside of the mouth and the upper side, you can see again all of the detail looking incredible up there, but you can see a little variation of color. There's definitely a nice reddish wash that has been applied to the inside of the mouth, and of course a nice gloss coat making sure everything shines very realistically there on the inside of the mouth of the T-Rex. I will say I did just notice one of the teeth somehow got pushed up inside the mouth, so it is a little warped as far as that one tooth goes. But I definitely can get that back into position at some point. But we have the teeth again on the inside of the mouth that do have that really nice realistic look to it. Very cool material that they use for those teeth that definitely help them to look super realistic. They also have been given a darker wash, kind of like a brownish wash to add a little bit of dirtiness to the teeth, a little bit of realism, and you can see the teeth on the lower jaw. Everything inside the mouth looks as genuine and natural and realistic as it gets. But then as we move up into the top of the T-Rex, you can see a seam there where the head is connected, but you can also see a nice lighter brown begin to run back from the head there. We can also see some of the darker patterns pick up, as well as a little variation of the browns moving down through the body. Looks as though we've got a nice dry brushing with a lighter brown over top of the initial brown, but we have a lot of patterning as you move through with that black, as well as again that light brown stripe stripe kind of running down along the side. And then you also have a lighter brown as you move down here into the underbelly of the T-Rex. We as well have a red in the throat area here, which looks really good, and then some more of that tone right around the arm area here as you move along the underside. There is also a perfectly applied dark wash to the underside of the T-Rex, which you can see. Again, really helping to highlight all of the detail, add a little variation of color and just realism in general to the figure as you move along the underside, really popping the scales on the underside of the T-Rex. As you move back into the stomach region, you can see that lighter tone lead up and kind of like stripe and pattern up into the side of the Tyrannosaurus, and as you move up further, you again are littered with all of those patterns moving through, as well as a striping moving along the back of the dinosaur. You can also see kind of like some areas of the, like a light wash, like a tan wash that's been applied in some spots as well, just for a little more realism. As you move down through the arm, you do have the pretty much standard brown of the body. As you lead down, you also have a little variation of color. I can kind of see like some lighter browns included within as well. And then of course the claws painted with a black, and the arms are actually articulated, so you can move those forward and back, which is really fun. Definitely love that Rebor often applies articulation to their figures. And as we continue to lead along, you still see that, well, if my camera would focus, that light brown very subtly continuing to stripe down through the body. More of the patterns, more variation to the browns. Again, nice dry brushing, really bringing out the browns on the leg as far as the scales and everything go as you move down. Of course, we've already gone over the sculpt of this with the initial review, so we really only need to take a look at what's different, which is the coloration of this figure. But you can see again a little bit of a striping in the back of the thigh. Moving down, you've got a really smooth transition to that lighter tone in the back of the calf. You have a little more patterning moving down the front of the leg, and then you move down into the foot sculpt, and you've got again some more variations of browns, with the lighter browns moving along the underside of the feet, and then of course the claws painted with a nice blackish tone, and then you do as well have the dew claw painted. And then we move out into the tail, and we basically have like a little jagged design, a little patterning as we lead out, where the lighter tone leads up and then the darker browns lead down. You as well have the blackish tones, and then you have the light brown that kind of continues to stripe down through the tail as you lead all the way out to the ending of the tail. Definitely some really nice paintwork on this figure overall. And then you'll see, of course, the exact same thing over here from one side to the other. You're not going to see much of any difference as far as the coloration goes. A little difference as far as the sculpt, of course, but not a whole lot as far as the actual paintwork goes. You will see a seam in the tail because the tail does come disconnected. It is unassembled in a way. Just basically the tail is the only thing that needs to be connected once you get the figure, but due to that you do see a seam. But the tail is a flexible wire tail, so you can pose the tail as well, which is of course another really fun element of the Rebor figures. But overall, that is definitely a gorgeous version of the Rebor Tyrannosaurus Rex. Now, we don't need to do sizes or anything like that. We really don't even need to do comparisons, but there is, of course, one comparison we are definitely going to do, and that is with the original Rebor Kiss. And as you can see, the sculpt is absolutely the same. There is no difference whatsoever when it comes to the sculpt of the T-Rex. I could see that just looking at the two. Obviously, the legs and the neck, the turn in the head, everything is exactly the same. Even the style of like skin texture and everything. Nothing has been changed to give this a different look. So if you do have the original one, you do already own this sculpt, but I would absolutely recommend grabbing this new version, the island version with the Prehistoric Planet colors, because man, first of all, it looks so nice, and secondly, it just goes so nicely with this other version of the T-Rex. If you go back to the release of the Tyrannosaurus, you had Kiss and Tusk, which means the other one didn't have lips, but you can now get two different paint variants of the lipped version of the Rebor Tyrannosaurus now. So definitely recommend picking up the island version to go with the original version of Kiss. So this brand new Rebor Island version of Kiss the Tyrannosaurus is fantastic and definitely one of the most striking Tyrannosaurus figures you will see on the market anywhere. You have that, again, pretty much picture-perfect Prehistoric Planet appearance to this version of the T-Rex, which at this point has become such an iconic color scheme for a Tyrannosaurus. Prehistoric Planet really came in strong and left its definitive mark on, honestly, all of us, but in general, paleontology, because it became pretty much the go-to when it comes to dino documentaries like that. I would say even overtaking Walking with Dinosaurs, which of course I love. That's no diss to Walking with Dinosaurs. I actually just watched it again the other day, but I feel like Prehistoric Planet has now become the ultimate when it comes to dino documentaries and, CGI-filled dino documentaries, and really getting a good feel for what dinosaurs would look like alive. And we now have a beautiful model version of such an iconic Tyrannosaurus Rex now, thanks to Rebor. Again, the sculpt is absolutely awesome in my opinion. I think it's super well done, really big, beefy, very impressive detail overall, and conveniently, the sculpt of the T-Rex quite nicely looks like the actual Prehistoric Planet version of the T-Rex. Obviously, there's going to be a little bit of difference here and there, but for the most part, I think, Rebor really did do a great job on the Tyrannosaurus sculpt, looking kind of similar to what you see in Prehistoric Planet in the first place. So as a whole, I think that definitely looks great, and the coloration being, again, that Prehistoric Planet style just went so well with this figure. As far as the actual application of the paint, it is also very nicely applied, very naturally applied, beautiful patterns moving through, really smooth transitions where they're meant to be smooth, very abrupt transitions, but natural transitions when it comes to the striping and patterning and stuff, and they've done a great job of adding in quite a bit of variation of color to the figure. I say it quite often when it comes to newer Rebor releases, but I think their paintwork has never been better than it is right now. So if you are interested in this, I got this from Happy Hen Toys, which is probably one of the absolute most underrated dinosaur toy websites or model websites that you are going to find anywhere. I absolutely recommend checking them out. I feel like they just don't get nearly enough praise for the great work that they do. So check out Happy Hen Toys. Without a doubt, pick up this T-Rex and add it to your collection, again using the link that I will include in the description, which will take you straight to the listing on Happy Hen Toys. Shop around, see what else you can find while you're there, because they do have tons of models from most of your favorite brands. But check all of that out. Definitely pick up this Rex and like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.